Hi, I am Jen who reads, so welcome or welcome back to my channel. Today I want to talk to you about all the books that I read in August. August was a great reading month for me. I finished 10 books, so that is physical books, books on my Kindle, and also books that I listen to via audiobooks. And I think that it's probably been my best reading month in quite a while. So I'm really excited to show you everything that I read and talk to you about my thoughts and get your feedback as well. I have these books listed in no particular order, except for that the ones that I'm going to show you first are the ones that I have physical copies of to show you. So first up, I have Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak, I think. And this, I don't read a whole lot of thrillers, but this was really, really good. And my favorite thing about this book was the whole time I was reading it, there would be very obvious things that the characters said or very obvious events that happened. And you could pick those out and say, oh, I know that that's going to be important to the plot twist at the end or for some development in the future. So the whole time I was reading this, I was like, this is good, but like these are very obvious. And let me tell you, I was right and I was wrong. So all of those things that I picked out, they did tie together to have something to do with the ending of this book, but it was not like anything that I could have even imagined. I've never read a book like this. It is a little thick, but I would say there's probably about 75 pages or so that are just pictures. And they do have something to do with the story, and they sort of change and progress as the story goes on. So overall, this book I did give 5 stars. And I would very much recommend it. I did start a Pango account. I will have the information listed in the description. So if you are interested in seeing what books I have for sale, this is going to be one of them because yes, I really did like it. It's a 5-star book, but it is a standalone. I'm not going to read it again. I don't really have a place on my shelf specifically for thrillers. So this is just sort of like an odd man out kind of a book. So I am going to be unhauling this in my Pango shop. The next book I have to talk about is another 5-star read. And I've noticed as I've been looking back through my reading lists and my GOODREADS that I am tending to stay away or kind of steer clear of young adult. And that's not intentional. I just think that as a reader, like my tastes and things are changing. That is not to say that I dislike young adults. So this next book that I have is a young adult book. It is the last book in the trilogy. So the first book I have on back here is Cruel Prince and then The Wicked King. So this is the wrap up of the trilogy, The Queen of Nothing. Overall, I gave this series a 5. I did give the first and the third book a 5. Also, I rated the second book a 3. But overall, this was an amazing series. Then there is also a companion series that is out called The Stolen Heir, which follows one of the characters in this book, but it's like 10 years in the future. So it sort of picks up in the same universe. So although these are young adult, I definitely really enjoyed them. They're beautiful, like I said, and I would highly recommend these books. They kind of remind me a little bit of the world in the movie Labyrinth with the Goblin King and like all those just kind of crazy creatures. And so if you like Labyrinth, this gives you kind of the same feels. The next book I have is a novella. It is 6 Scorched Roses. So this is by Carissa Broadbent. And it is in the same world as the Serpent and the Wings of Night series. So I've read The Serpent and the Wings of Night. This was recommended to read next. And so after this, I will read the other one, Ashes something. Anyways, again, this is another series that looks beautiful on the shelf. It was really a quick read. The main creatures in this series are vampires, and I've loved vampires ever since I was in 8th grade and I watched Interview with the Vampire. So of course, anything with vampires, I love to read. And so 6 Scorched Roses, just a little bit of a novella. Definitely recommend. It was a 5-star. I have a book that I did not enjoy. I think I rated this like a 2.5, and it's one that's been on my shelf for a really long time, and I have heard amazing things about it, but I just didn't love it. That's The Midnight Library. I did love certain aspects of it. So this woman, she dies, and instead of going to heaven or hell, she basically gets to like relive her life again and again and again, changing different things that she has found regrettable in her life, whether it was her choice in partner or her choice in career. And once she finds a life that she's happy with, she can stay there. That's all I'm going to say because I don't want to spoil anything for you. That was interesting to read, how her life would have changed. So depending on different decisions that she made, there were different people in her life that died, or maybe they weren't friends anymore, or whatever the circumstance may be. So that was a little bit interesting, sort of like the movie The Butterfly Effect, where if you change one little thing, it can just change everything. And so I did like that aspect of it. The ending, though, I did not like. The main character, she loves philosophy, and I think she may have even studied philosophy in school. So towards the end, there were actually a few pages that I just like skimmed because it was just like full of philosophical thoughts, and it didn't really contribute to the story at all. So unfortunately, this is also going in my Pango shop, which I'll have listed in the description. And I only gave it a 2.5. And the last book that I have a physical copy of is book 2 in Terry Pratchett's The Discworld. This is The Light Fantastic. So I picked up the first book, The Color of Magic, and then I read it. And then I watched a bunch of things on YouTube where people were saying, don't read these in chronological order. But I had already started, so I just decided to continue it, and I am going to continue it. So this book and the previous book follow the same characters. So really it's one big book. It's just split up into 2 smaller books. And I have heard that this is a lot of people's least favorite characters that are in this book. So I only expect this series to get better, which there's a lot of books. There's like 40 or something books in this series. I liked the characters okay. I liked these 2 books okay. I did give this a 3.5. And partly it's just because the writing is not my favorite. Sometimes I will reread a page like 3 times and still not understand what is going on, or like, did I miss something completely? But then as you progress in the story and you keep reading, you find out that, oh, okay, I did understand that. And it does tie in with what's happening later in the book. That being said, the 2, well, I guess 3 main characters of this book, which is Rincewind, he's a wizard, Two Flower, and he's a tourist. And then there's another character, which is a creature, and his name is Luggage, and he is just really like a luggage. But he follows his master around everywhere that he goes, and he's got a whole bunch of different legs. So he's really, really cute. And so I do like these characters. I do smile and have really great thoughts and memories and stuff when I think of this book. There is a movie. I found it on YouTube. It was a really bad quality. It's called The Color of Magic, and it has really good people in it. I think it was from 2008. It has like Sean Astin and Tim Curry, and I can't remember who else. It was okay. I think if you watched it and you hadn't read the books, you wouldn't enjoy it. But if you've read the books, it's kind of fun to see the characters come to life a little bit. I'm definitely going to be continuing the series. I'm going to try to read a book every month, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen exactly, but that's the goal. The next book I have, I did read the physical copy of it, but I don't have it. It is because it belongs to my school, so I just read it over the summer. It was one of the books that is on the book list for the state of Florida. The state of Florida puts out a book list called the Sunshine State Readers every year. And it's just, 15 books that are recommended for middle schools in the state of Florida. And then they do like competitions and Battle of the Books and stuff like that. So this was Skandar and the Unicorn Thief. Recently, the second one in this series came out. So I decided to pick it up and read it so that I could recommend it to my class. I did enjoy it. I did give it a 4 stars. I think if you read this as a middle schooler, which is, with the age that it's geared towards, you would probably rate it higher. Sometimes I read middle school books that I definitely rate a 5. This wasn't one of them. There's nothing wrong with this book, but it's definitely geared towards middle schoolers. And I would absolutely recommend it, though, for anybody in the age of, like, I'd say like 11 to 14. The next book is one that was my favorite read of August. I read it on KU, and it's Divine Rivals. I only rated this a 4.75, even though I think it's a 5-star read. The reason I rated it a 4.75 is just because at the beginning it's a little bit slow, but I'd say about halfway in it starts to pick up, and it is just amazing. I've never read a book that reads like a historical fiction. It is really reminiscent of a World War II historical fiction, except for that it's in a fictional world. So the war that's going on is between two gods. And there is not a lot of mention of these gods or any much background on the gods or like why this war is going. There's a little bit, but it doesn't really go into too much detail. The main focus is on two characters who they meet because they are sending each other messages on magical typewriters. And that's all I want to say about that, because I don't want to spoil anything. The next book comes out soon. I'm not exactly sure when. And I've heard that people are speculating that it's going to have a lot more to do with the gods than this first book did. But I think that this was such a great book. And every time I see a typewriter, I think of this book. And if you know, you know. If you've read this book, you'll know why. That is such a strong visual image in my mind with this book. But it is on Kindle Unlimited if you have that, and I definitely recommend it. All right, this next book, I listened to this next book. When it first came out, I saw it. I think it was like the Barnes & Noble Young Adult pick for some month last year. And I loved the front of the book. It's anatomy. And the front of the book is like a woman, or a girl, and she's sitting with a dress, and the dress is like spread around her, and it kind of looks like an anatomical heart. And so I've wanted to read this book for a while, and I did see it at the library, and it was available without wait. So I picked it up. Well, I picked up the audio version of it, and I listened to it. And the narrator has a Scottish accent because it is set in Scotland, but it's not so thick that you can't understand it. Excuse me. It's not such a thick accent that you have a hard time understanding her. It was really cute. There is a second book called Immortal. I don't know if I'll read it or not. Maybe if I need a book and it's available on audio, I'll pick it up. But it was good. It was just middle of the road. So there you go. All right, I have 2 left. So I listened to the second book in the American Royal series, which is called Majesty. And this series really took me by surprise. Basically, this is about what would have happened if the people of the United States back in the 1700s decided that instead of a democracy, they were going to stick with the monarchy because that's what they were familiar with. So instead of presidents, there is a royal family, and it is descended from George Washington. So he became the first king of the United States of America. And they live in the Capitol in Washington, D.C. So it's pretty much like America as we know it now, except for that there's a monarchy. And it follows the main character, one of the main character. She is the first daughter of the current king. And so she is the first one in history to be a female successor to the throne. And so it just kind of goes through a lot of the stuff that she deals with. And then her brother and her sister are younger than her. And it talks about things that they go through. And, you know, it's romance and it's comedy and it's wonderful. But something that I really enjoy, and I didn't even realize it until the second book because that's when it really started to get into it, is if you think that somebody's end game in this book, they're probably not end game. People are seeming to not end up with the people that you think that they're going to end up with. And I think there's 2 more books in this series, and I'm going to read or listen to all of them. And I just really like this book, and I really, really recommend it. And that brings us to the last book. So I know I said that Divine Rivals was probably my favorite read of August. This ties Divine Rivals. It is called Role Playing. I think Kathy Yardley is the author, but I have it right up here. You can check me. Maybe I'm wrong. But this is a rom-com like I have never, ever read before. First of all, when it talks about role-playing, it's talking about playing role-playing games like on your computer. And so a lot of the lingo I was familiar with just because my boyfriend plays those kinds of games. I don't know what they're called. I don't know. Anyways, so a lot of the lingo was familiar to me, like guilds and raids and stuff like that. So that was kind of neat because it kind of brought in like a nerd culture. But the two main characters are older, so they're 48 and 50. And it's sort of Grumpy Sunshine, except for that she is the grumpy and he is the sunshine. But really, maybe instead of Grumpy Sunshine, they should call it like Recluse and Cinnamon Roll. I don't know. But I found myself connecting with the main character, the female main character, a whole lot. And they come together. There is a lot of talk about exploring your sexuality as somebody who is an older human being. The male main character in the book pretty much spends his whole life thinking that there's something wrong with him. And when he meets this other woman, this other character, and they're just friends at first, she explains a whole lot to him about just different segments and different sections that fall under the LGBTQ umbrella. And he had no idea. So this book was so cute and I loved reading every second of it. And it's probably one of my most favorite rom-coms that I've ever read. And it is on KU. Hi, me again. I know I have a different background because I'm recording a different video, but while I was recording this video, I realized that if you watched my August TBR, there is something, I think were two books that I did not get to that were on my TBR. The first one is Simon Sort of Says. That is still on my list to read. I don't know when I'm going to get to it. But the other one is one I want to talk about, and it's Darker Shade of Magic. I'm going to push that one off and actually put that on my October TBR because I think that it just fits the October feels a little bit more. But I did try to listen to it on audiobook, and I could tell it was one of those books that if I listened to it on audio, I probably wouldn't enjoy it. So I went ahead and returned the audiobook to the library. It's on KU, so I think I'm going to push that one back to October. But anyways, I just wanted to pop on and tell you that that is what happened to the two books on my TBR that I didn't get around to. All right, so that is all that I read in the month of August. Feel free to follow all of my socials. I will list all of my Pango information in the description. And as always, thank you for your support. Bye.